Satan's accusations, and remember, he is the accuser, and his accusations against Joshua were an attempt to get a sentence of condemnation passed against him. He was pointing out to God, Satan was, look here, this man's supposed to be your priest, and look how sinful he is. Look at the filth on him. You need to do away with him. What did Jesus do? What did God do in this case? Cleaned him up. Cleaned him up. He wasn't ready to get rid of him. And Satan hates it when God's people come back to him and the presence of the Lord is so vividly there and the person's cleaned up. This passage is about sin, yes, but that's not the end of the story. It's about forgiveness of sin. The enemy accuses God's people of not being fit to serve him. Ever hear anything like that today? We know when we read back in Zechariah and even in the New Testament that there are accusers and there are nitpickers that say the people following God aren't fit to do that. They're just pretending. Do you hear that today? Yeah, I think the spirit of the devil is there today just like he's always been. It's similar to a prosecuting attorney. You know, anybody always plays that role of prosecuting attorney. And it's like he's there to cause conflict. He's there to convict, to accuse, and to tell God that he's wrong. You ever hear anything like that today? You think, well, no, nobody would say God's wrong today. What about our world? What about our society? What we say is okay and what we say is not okay? How close to the Bible is it? I'm afraid not very close in many cases. So we're not talking about something that only happened years ago. It's happening today. That we basically call God a liar by saying that sin is not sin. Need to be careful, don't we? Thank God for his forgiveness. Here's an angelic being who, because of a selfish desire, rebelled against God. Is that Satan? Yes, it is. Is he flesh? Is he a spirit? He's a heavenly being that's here on earth. Not good. Thrown out of heaven. Only created that way. Whatever the angel was, we know that now he's bad. Very bad. In fact, he could have been a very highest up angel ever, but he's gone bad. He's working havoc among people because we allow that. By the way, it is evident that God created an enemy with a free will. He didn't make Satan do anything. That was Satan himself who decided. It was his own decision to rebel, but God used him in the plan that he had to give mankind choices. A choice, particularly, of following Satan or following Jesus, accepting Jesus. So whether we refer to the enemy as Satan with a small s or Satan with a big S, or whether we think he's spirit or flesh, he's the same, and he's committed to doing the same thing he's always done, and that is to steal, to kill, and to destroy. In the Revelation, the Bible states that the devil and his angels were thrown down to earth. The dragon was thrown down, who was the old serpent. Remember the old serpent in the Garden of Eden? How consistent it is in the Word of God. Now that old serpent's called the dragon. And the devil and Satan, they were there to deceive the whole world. And his angels, those who followed him, were cast out with him according to Revelation. Apostle Paul in Romans 16 verse 20 says that the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. The archenemy of God's people is who the serpent was. That's who he is. It is the same evil spirit of the archangel who rebelled against God. The same as Satan. The same, just as Paul and John understood, the enemy is the enemy of God. whether he's called Satan, he's called a spirit, or he's called the capital Satan, the name of a being, whether he's called accuser, destroyer, whatever he's called, he's the same. As we saw earlier in the New Testament, there is a distinct increase in the references to Satan by many different names in the New Testament. Full circle this is. The same serpent that tempted Adam and Eve, and the same one they yielded to, is the same enemy of God's people today. And he continues to attack us today in the same manners, I might add. Yet, remember, he that is in us is greater than he that is in the world. Who's in the world? The enemy, Satan. When you hear the word Satan, what image or what images does that conjure up in your mind? An evil creature with horns, a tail, and a pitchfork, like we see depicted from time to time? Or some lovely lady, and the lust of your eyes are tempted? Figure that out. Is the one that tempts you the most, that's him. Whatever it is, that's him. So, as we look on into this character of Satan, he was really by that name a latecomer in the ancient world. Satan evolved during the height of the Persian Empire, and I'm talking about the term Satan, beginning in about 550 BC. During that period, the Jews were living under Persian rule. And the Persians had a spirit, a man, a god they named Satan. And it's derived from the Hebrew of Ha-Satan, which means the Satan, which means the opposer or the adversary. The name described what the eventual function of this enemy of God is. He's an opposer of God. He's an opposer of God's creation. In the Greek, diabolos, he's a diabolical person or being. In English, a devil, meaning he's an accuser, a slanderer, again describing his role. The concept of Satan held by many today emerged over time and in phases, and in all these ways it fits today. These are characteristics of the enemy of God. Cultural differences of the enemy put aside, no matter what the Greeks called him or the Hebrews call him or call him, Satan is as personal today in attacking believers as he has ever been. He's known as a great deceiver. He deceived Adam and Eve. He will deceive me. He will deceive you unless we keep our eyes on Jesus. He is the arch enemy of God and of the followers of God. So be aware, but keep our eyes on Jesus. The story of the Bible opens with the creation and God declaring the universe as being perfect after he declared it into being. He spoke it into being. The first two chapters are the breathtaking scene of the order and the wholeness and the flourishing of God's creation. No wonder the Maker surveys of everything, and he looked at it and he said, it's very good. God created, he saw it, declared it good. And then suddenly there appears a snake. This is no ordinary snake. No, this is one that talks. In fact, he's quite chatty according to the scriptures. Before we know it, this slithering creature has struck up a conversation with Eve, luring her and her silent husband, and you and me, into a revolt against God, into disobedience. And as the story unfolds in Genesis, it becomes clear that this ancient serpent is a scaly manifestation of Satan himself, who was made a good angel, heavenly being, and turned bad because of his selfish desires and pride. Satan has authority. Where? In the realm of demons. In the evil world, Satan has authority. When did the first sin happen? You might say, well, Adam and Eve. Well, for human beings, yes. But Satan himself sinned when he was disobedient by challenging God. The prince of demons, it seems, was likely that Satan launched and led the first heavenly revolt, this heavenly revolt in heaven. Satan was the first sinner. Indeed, he's been sinning from the beginning. This was not the first sin of a human being, yet it was the first sin that is recorded in the Scriptures. The devil's position as captain of the demonic forces is unmistakable. No question about it. He's the ruler of this world. That's because God has turned it over to him, but he is the ruler of this world. That's in John 12:31. He's the God of this age in 2 Corinthians 4:4. He's the prince of the power of the air in Ephesians 2:2. We witness him spearheading attacks on God's people. Job 1:6 is an example. And he has power in Acts 26:18 to bind in Luke 13:16 and to oppress in Acts 10:38. Satan's evil came from within himself. Adam and Eve were tempted and yielded. Satan really wasn't tempted. Lucifer, as he's called, just got so proud of himself. He saw how beautiful he was. And his selfishness was attractive to others who had tendency to be the same way. And he developed a following. And that was the downfall. No one was around to tempt him or to lure him into sin. His evil rose from within himself. Jesus would call him the father of lies, a murderer from the beginning. That's in John 8:44. The beginning, when was that? It was at creation. The King James Version translate morning star as Lucifer. It's a name meaning the bearer of light. Though common in religious words and talk, this name doesn't appear in most modern translations of the Bible. Can you imagine what kind of counterfeit that is? Who is the light of the world? It's Jesus Christ. Who is this? Lucifer, the morning star. Means he's the one who brings light, a counterfeit to the real Jesus Christ. Now, there are a lot of questions that linger, but we don't need to dwell on them. How could a morally pure creature rebel against God? That's what he did. Why did the other angels join in the revolt? Could be that they had the same kind of thoughts, right? When did all this happen? A long time ago. A long time ago, I believe before man was created. The Satan was there. Even though Christians don't know all the answers, we know this. God does. We know that the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the devil. Believers are to be followers of King Jesus. And there is a great reason to take heart. God's enemy was defeated. He is being defeated, and he will be defeated. Colossians, Ephesians, Romans. While his fate is set for the current period of time, he prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. In 1 Peter 5:8. But at the death of Jesus, he was defanged. Those poisonous fangs were pulled out. And at Jesus' return, he will be destroyed. In the meantime, his havoc extends only as far as God's hand allows. Greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. Lessons on this topic will continue as we study what the Bible teaches about how believers are to battle and to win through Jesus this battle, this war against God's enemy. Thank you, and be looking forward to our next lesson as I do. Thank you, and God bless.